Hi everyone. Thought I'd do a little video here with my Harmony cartridge for the Atari 2600. The Harmony cartridge allows you to play original game ROMs, homebrew, or ROM hacks on real hardware. You basically load the program file on an SD card. The cartridge goes in your original Atari, your 7800, your Colecovision with expansion module 1, any device that was capable of running real Atari cartridges. So I'm going to take a look at some original games that were released by Atari or third-party manufacturers versus either ROM hacks, remakes, or completely new code based on the same game. So what we're looking at here is the original Pac-Man that was released back in 1981 by Atari. There was a huge hype about this game. It was in the arcades. It was like the #1 game at the time. I was definitely playing Pac-Man myself, and I couldn't wait to get a home conversion of it. A lot of people started putting money down in advance to get the game, and a lot of people were disappointed. As you can see, it's very rudimentary Pac-Man, but it's really not anything close to the arcade. You know, it's okay. I remember I played it, and I was okay with it, I guess, but I was not happy thinking I was getting Pac-Man. So, Atari actually lost a lot of money on this. A lot of people returned the game because they said it wasn't Pac-Man, and they couldn't believe they charged $50 for it. So this is a two-player game, and it was done in 4K. And the gentleman who worked on it at Atari kind of took little liberties with it, and this is what he came out with. And again, it's okay. It's enjoyable to play. But let's take a look at what some other one has done on Atariage. It's an 8K cartridge. It's a single-player game of Pac-Man. But let's take a look at it and see what Atari could have had on its hands back in the day and how things could have been very different for them. Okay, this program is called Pac-Man 8K. I don't think this is the latest version. This is version 4. But you can see even the main screen kind of recreates the attract mode on the arcade. So let's take a look at the gameplay, the screens, and how it sounds. Well, you can see and hear a lot of improvements. Again, this is using more than the 4K that was used in the original game. It's using at least 8K, but the sounds are much, much better, much closer to the arcade original. The characters all look much, much better, very close to the arcade original. Pac-Man looks like Pac-Man. The ghosts, or actually, a little trivia, they originally were monsters. They changed it to ghosts later on, but originally they were monsters. So you can see the gameplay is a lot more like the original. This also has all the arcade cutscenes, which I'll skip ahead in a little bit, and I'll go to one of them so you can see it. But if Atari had released this back in the day, they would have sold many, many more Atari 2600s just to get this game, just as Space Invaders had done prior. So let's skip ahead, and I'll get to one of the intro screens. Okay, I'm about to get to the cut screen. Let's go. Okay, so let's take a look at another game that was a large disappointment for people when they were going to buy the newest and greatest game. Let's go take a look and see what's next. Here we have a huge game of its day, Donkey Kong. This is Coleco's port to the Atari 2600, and I used to call it Cookie Man because Donkey Kong actually looks like a big gingerbread man throwing cookies down at you. Now this also is a 4K cartridge, which was a pretty standard thing for Atari back in the day. And if you wanted to play Donkey Kong on an Atari, this was it. And it only has 2 of the 4 stages. I mean, it's an okay game. Again, it's got some of the gameplay elements in it. But if you wanted to play Donkey Kong, this is a very, not great port. But I always felt as a kid that Atari did it this poorly because they wanted you to buy their ColecoVision, which I do have, and the port of Donkey Kong and that's phenomenal. But more so, didn't make that jump. It's really probably more so a limitation of the cartridge, the amount of space that they had, and a little bit of the ladder of them simply wanting you to buy the better version on their ColecoVision console. But again, this only had 2 levels. A lot of the programs back in the day, different consoles, actually had at least 3 stages. Even the ColecoVision port only had 3, unless you had the Atom, you got all 4 stages. So that's it for the original version that Coleco had released. Let's go take a look at a port that I think is going to really impress you and make you... A lot of people felt also, I forgot to mention, that they thought the Atari couldn't do much better than this. The hardware was very primitive, and it is. But I think you're going to be shocked to see what can be done with the hardware when you have a little more space to work with. So let's go take a look at a program called Donkey Kong VCS. Okay, so I don't believe this is the latest build, but this is Donkey Kong VCS on an Atari 2600. And you can see Donkey Kong. I'm hoping it's coming on my camera okay. It looks a lot more like Donkey Kong. You can see already it's much more like the arcade, and again, this is not a completed game, it's still a beta, but you have the fireball, which you didn't have any of the, a lot of the home ports didn't even have the fireball with the barrel. The barrels look like barrels, not cookies. The girders are level, they're not bent, but again, this is an early version of the game. But you can see oh, I almost made it. Donkey Kong's up top, smiling at me that I got hit. Twice. Donkey Kong is not forgiving, that's for sure. Okay, we'll give this one more try. I did a lot better the last time. Because this actually does have all 4 levels in the game. Apparently not very high. We'll go with my first game. But let's see how we do better this time. Much better. All right. And you can see he goes away. He crawls up just like he did in the arcade. And very few consoles had the Pi factory, which you can see is here in this port. The Coleco Atom had it. The TI-9948 version had it. And there was a version called Donkey King on the TRS-80 that had it. Now again, this is not a finished game. You can see there's a lot of graphics missing on this stage. But Coleco's port and a lot of ports never had the spring that comes down here, which has made this level very difficult. And even in unfinished form, it's a very playable version. The fireballs also in this stage look accurate to the arcade, and they just killed me. Fireballs will do what fireballs will do. Come on, you little boogers. Oh my goodness. Last try. So you can see a very accurate port. It's still not finished, but again, this is playing on an Atari, and you compare it to Coleco's version, it's phenomenal. So let's go take a look at another game that wasn't necessarily a bad game, but they definitely were able to improve it. Now, back in the day, this Space Invaders and Asteroids were my favorite games. And this was it was an okay port. I was always a little disappointed that they were solid and they weren't like vectors, graphic looking, like in the arcade. But it just wasn't a bad game. I definitely enjoyed it. I played it a lot till my fingers were all cramped up. You had the sounds. You had the heartbeat driving you on. You had the UFOs. You could do 2 players at the same time, co-op. So that gave you a lot of options. So this was definitely a much better game than, say, Pac-Man would have been back in the day. But it doesn't mean you can't improve it. So let's go take a look at a game called Space Rocks that improves on this and gives you tons of options. So here's Space Rocks. And you have lots of options. You have different players, how you want to control your ship. You want to do it by a gamepad or a joystick. Do you want to have them vector style or solid? I like vector style. Change the colors, level. Do you want hyperspace? Do you want to turn around? Do you want shields? I'll take shields. And lots of other options. Bonus lives. Let's start the game. And you can see it's kind of like Asteroids Deluxe. You have a fake vector look and they rotate like Asteroids Deluxe. I have shields. The sound effects are good. You have UFOs. So it not that the original Asteroids was a bad game, but this definitely gives you some really nice options that again would have made me go crazy back in the day. You even have the boss from Asteroids Deluxe. So let's take a look at another game, which definitely was not a bad game. As a matter of fact, it was a big hit for Atari. But let's see what someone can still prove a game that was already good and make it either better or more accurate. Let's go take a look at another game. So here's a version that Atari released, Space Invaders. And it definitely was not a bad game at all. As a matter of fact, when this was released, Atari sold a ton of 2600s because it was that good. It wasn't an exact arcade port. They don't look exactly like they did in the arcade. But it had 112 game variations, and it was probably better in a lot of ways. This was definitely one that I was hooked on, all my friends were hooked on, and we would stay inside all summer playing Space Invaders. So you've probably seen this more than enough times on other YouTube videos, but it doesn't mean that you can't improve it. So let's go take a look at what some other one has done, again on Atariage. It made a version of Space Invaders that not necessarily is better than this version, because this is actually a very good version, but still enjoyable. Let's go take a look. Now here's a version of Space Invaders where it's basically the same game we just played, but someone has taken the graphics and simply made it look more like the arcade original. And to be honest, I would have really liked this as well. Maybe having an option to do that. Because I always liked how the original Space Invaders had looked. I played the arcade a ton. And it was very fun. But they've made many versions of hacking the original game of Space Invaders. And let's just take a look at one other version. And then we'll end up the video. Here's Space Invaders Deluxe, which is, again, just another hack of the original game, but tried to make it a little bit more like the arcade as far as how it looks. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, and please leave any comments down below. I always appreciate them. I enjoy reading comments from other gamers and any suggestions you might have. And definitely play some good retro games. Everyone, game on and have a great day.